Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sassy True Crime, where we expose and shine the light on crimes that happen in the dark. We're gathered here today to discuss the disappearance of 14-year-old Ziyaharris. This case is extremely sad and reminds me of the Madeline Soto case in so many different aspects. Ziyaharris never made it home from school at Clark Elementary in Detroit, Michigan. Her grandmother reported her missing that day to the Detroit Public School Police Department, but it wasn't until February 14th, 2024, there was a press conference announcing that the Detroit Police Department would begin investigating. But why did it take so long to begin an official investigation into this missing child? Let's watch the February 14th press conference where both law enforcement and Nazia's family plead for any information leading to her whereabouts.
Good afternoon. I'm Rochelle Graham. We want to get you out to some developing news right now. Detroit Police Chief James White is holding a press conference on a missing 13-year-old girl who hasn't been seen since January 9th. This update coming from Shoemaker and Garland. We hope to learn if there's significance to this location and the investigation. It just started. Let's listen in.
That's fine.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I want to just start off before I bring up Chief Jackson from Detroit Public Schools Police Department and to what brought us here today. On February 12th, we had a briefing on this missing child. Yesterday, we had a much more comprehensive and detailed meeting where he brought forth a number of different factors as to what occurred and what they have been working on. We left that meeting with some very serious concerns about Nazia's safety, and I'll bring up Chief Jackson at this time to give you an overview, and I'll be coming back up to talk about the details. Chief Jackson.
Good afternoon. Back on January 9th, we believe Miss Nazia Harris did not return home from school. She was a student at Clark Elementary. January 10th, her family went about the process of reporting her missing. We began our investigation at that point. We began working back, following through her on her last known steps, possible person she was in contact with, some of her school-age friends, gathering different information. As we began to work back through that information with our local, state, and federal law enforcement partners, information that we obtained has led us to this point here. At that point, we reached out to Chief White to let him know the developments that we had, and so at that point, we decided that this investigation had kind of gone past the four walls of our building, and Chief White stepped in to help us out. Chief White.
All right, thank you, Chief. So again, after our meeting yesterday, we were very, very concerned. I made the decision at that time that we will take lead on this investigation. We'll be bringing in our local, federal, state partners, a very concerned community, our Board of Police Commissioners, our civic leaders, every single person to assist us in bringing little Nazia home. That's the goal here, is to do everything we can to bring her home. We have debriefed on a number of different factors. We're hopeful that we find her well, but we can't operate on hope. We have to operate on information, investigation, and work, and that's what we're here to do today with this incredible show of force that we have at this time. I will bring up Deputy Chief Carrie Sloan to talk a little bit about some of the aspects of the investigation at this time, but I will tell you that it is still early in the investigation on our part. Although DPS has done a number of different things, we are now doing a number of different things. We are actually, in fact, repeating some things to lay eyes on exactly what aspects of the investigation that we want to have some firsthand information on. So she's not going to be able to provide you granular detail at this time, but we'll just give you an overview and highlight some of the things that we're going to be doing. DC?
Good afternoon. Deputy Chief Carrie Sloan, the Detective Bureau. First, we would like to express our deep concern for the welfare and safety of 13-year-old Nazia Harris. who has been missing since January 9th. I would like to ensure Nazia's family that DPD intends to utilize every possible resource that we have to bring her home safely. As the chief mentioned, we are currently working with our local, federal, and state partners to establish exactly what occurred in this situation. At this point in the investigation, we are aggressively searching for Nazia and examining every piece of evidence to understand what transpired. We are in the process of re-examining and re-interviewing all witnesses and anyone with any possible information that can assist us in this investigation. DPD is committed to working this case until we locate Nazia, and we are asking the community for their help and anyone that has any information to reach out to the Detroit Police Department.
Commissioner.
I want to thank the Detroit Police Department and the Detroit Public Schools Police Department, those two chiefs, for working together in a unified manner. I stand here in full support of this department in finding our little precious child. And I ask everybody in this community to come together and rally with this department so that we can be able to find our young sister safely, prayerfully. And it is my goal to do everything in my power and within my sphere of influence to be able to work with the chief and this department to ask the clergy, ask every community person out here, all the block clubs, come out for this baby. I plead with you. And I'll say, if you are holding this young child, I ask you to please find it in your heart to let her go. And if anybody have any information regarding this situation, please contact the Detroit Police Department. And I'm just here on faith and making a commitment myself. If anybody have any credible information, that I will add $1,000 to any type of support to be able to find this young baby, because that means that much to me for this baby. I have a daughter. All of us have children, and this child need our help. And please turn the information over to the Detroit Police Department as soon as possible.
One more right behind you, Chief. And then Commissioner Smith. Commissioner Smith, yes.
Yes, good afternoon. I stand here in support today with the Detroit Police Department as well as the Detroit Public School Department. We're today in unity in hopes that we find this child safely. I'm just conveying the message that it is against the law to harbor a child. If someone is harboring her or keeping her against her will, please let her go. If any children or friends or neighbors or anyone who've seen her, please speak up. It is extremely important, and we are very concerned. The community is very concerned for the safety of her return. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Chief, sir. One more, the mom. The mother, yeah, okay. Grandmother, right. Yeah.
I'm asking anyone that knows anything about my granddaughter, please contact the police department. She's been missing for a very long time. Nazia is a very sweet child. This is not of her character. We've been looking for her. We've been passing out flyers. We've been calling people. We've been knocking on doors. We have done some of everything. And we're asking anybody that has any information, I don't care who it is, please come forth, contact the police department. Her life could be in danger. Please call the police department. I want my baby home. And I'm asking in the name of Jesus, yes. And I stand on my faith that he's going to bring her home. But if we all can come together and help find her, I'm telling you, we can make a difference. She's been missing. She's been gone too long. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Just bring her home, please. That's all I'm asking. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Just one more, Chief, one more community minister.
Thank you.
I would like to say that this is serious. As we can see, it's not just about the police. It's about the community. This really touches home with our grandchildren and our children and friends and family in the neighborhood. So some people may think it's all about the police. It's all about the community working in coalition together. Somebody has seen this young child and just overlooked it and thought it was business as usual, but we want it to be known that this is unusual business, and anything that we can do to reach out, get the information over to the authorities so that we can bring the baby home safe, we would love your support in that respect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Questions now, Chief. Chief, can you give us the specific timeline again about when she went missing, how long it took for the family to notify, and what efforts were taken in that time frame? But I'm more interested in the time frame off the top.
Yeah, I think it'd be most appropriate to have Chief Jackson do that part, and then I'll come in and talk about when we took over the case. Chief Jackson.
Yeah, so she was, it looks like she may have went missing on January 9th. It was reported to us on January 10th. At that point, we began preliminary investigation, speaking with school age friends, looking through her social media aspects, trying to retrace her steps, look who she may have been in contact with. So once we started processing through that information, different leads developed. We began running down those leads. We contacted our local, state, federal partners, U.S. Marshals, FBI, some of our task force partners, even some of the private sector, missing and exploited children, all brought in to assist us in the search for Naziah. So as we begin to work through that information, again, that investigation expand, more information developed, and that's when we reach back out to DPD, and here we are.
So obviously, you think if there's some sort of foul play here, we wouldn't be doing a grid search. So help us with what it is you can tell us about that.
We're not ruling anything out at this point. Just based off the information that we had, let us hear. We're running down every avenue. We don't make assumptions. You know, we can't speak to anything that we don't know. Only the information that we have, and that's what we're working through.
Are you going to be searching in this area?
It's going to take us here, outside of this community. Any information as things develop, you know, we could be coming to a community outside of Wayne County. So just as those leads develop, we'll follow them up.
Will there be just one search today, or will it be more than one?
There'll be multiple searches.
Can you say where?
No, not at this time.
Can you talk about what is involved in a grid search? Are you knocking on doors? What are you doing?
Yes. Simple answer to that is yes. It includes speaking with people in the community, business, following up at businesses, canvases, handing out flyers. All of those things are part of a grid search.
Can you say what might have led you here, and how far away from here does the child live?
Just based off the information, this is some of the information that was developed that led us here. So not to get into some of the intricacies of the investigation, right, but some of the information that we had led us here.
Okay, she goes to a school. How far is the school from here?
Several miles, perhaps.
And is there any reason to believe that she would come here other than on her way to school?
Again, we don't know Naziah, her comings and goings, other than the information that we had developed at that point.
Are there any suspects at this point?
No, not at this time.
Do you have any reason to believe that she was abducted against her will, or had she gone with somebody no willing?
Initially, no. We don't believe that initially there was an abduction. We do not believe that.
Do you think that she went with someone?
That information that we have, we're processing through all that information. As Chief White said, we're re-interviewing a lot of the people that we've already spoken to, just to get as much information, concrete information as we can.
And does anybody at the school have an understanding? In other words, can we say who it was that last saw her physically?
The information that we have, some of her friends, some of her classmates were some of the last to have spoken with her.
Did they see her like leaving school?
Yeah, we know that she physically left the school.
Okay, and once again, it's early in the investigation. We're just going to close it right now. For questions regarding this, for separate questions, we'll go. Well, we have just one more question.
Has she been seen in reported in any other community?
We don't have any information to give us that at this time. No.
All right. Okay, thank you so much, and everybody else. Chief, if you can just stand by for the separate questions for this. Thank you all. And I know we're going to just stand by for a minute, okay? All right.
What we do know is that Naziah, 13 years old at the time, got on the school bus after school on January 9th, but never made it home. We know through text message evidence obtained that Naziah had plans after school that day to meet 41-year-old Jarvis Butts, her aunt's boyfriend. Several individuals close to Jarvis Butts saw the two together in several different locations, and at 9:30 that night, Jarvis Butts checked into a motel, and Ziyaharris was never seen again. The question is, where is Naziah?
First, it was just another seemingly normal day for 13-year-old Ziyaharris. She went to school, spent time with her friends, went to class, and then got on the bus to go home. But when Naziah stepped off that school bus in East Detroit in January, it would be the last time anyone remembers seeing her. Naziah vanished. Where did she go? Who was with her? These are questions that are still haunting her family and questions her father never got answered, as he has since passed away. But now, new developments in this case. Police appear to be zeroing in on a known local sex offender who is currently in custody. Is this the big break? And will it lead to an answer to the question everyone is asking? Where is Naziah?
The big question, where is Naziah? The bigger question is, why did it take more than 1 month for the Detroit Police Department to start an investigation into her disappearance? So finally, on September 25th, 2024, there was a break in the case when a press conference aired and announced that Jarvis Butts was being charged with the teenager's murder. Along with the first-degree premeditated murder charge, there were numerous criminal sexual conduct charges for crimes against additional victims, including his own biological daughter and an ex-girlfriend's daughter. Let's listen to the press conference from September 25th, and then we'll watch the Jarvis Butts arraignment.
Thank you all for coming today. I want to start out this morning by introducing those that stand with me. To my far right, left, and your right, and who you are.
Matthew Makepeace with the SVU unit at Wayne County Prosecutor's.
Tina Ripley with the SVU unit at Wayne County Prosecutor's Office.
Matt and Tina will be trying the case.
And good morning, Louisa Papelis. I'm also with the Special Victims Unit, the Deputy Chief.
And good morning, Kelly Gleason. I'm the Chief of the Special Victims Unit.
Good morning, Chief White.
Good morning, Lieutenant Amber Roberson, Homicide Missing Person.
Sergeant Shannon Jones, Homicide Missing Person.
I have spent decades of my career looking at pictures of murdered people. When I was trying homicide cases for 6 straight years as an assistant prosecutor, I would spend hours thinking about the victim whose case I was getting ready to try, wondering how they spent their last weeks, their last days, their last hours, and their last minutes of their lives. What were they thinking about? Did they know that the end was near? And if it was someone they knew, what must they have been thinking as they were shot, stabbed, or whatever mechanism of death was used and confronted them with by the person they knew or loved? I can't imagine the thoughts that goes through their minds. But it's always 1,000 times worse when the person is a child or a baby, someone in the dawn of their lives who have begun to live their lives. The picture behind me is of Zanaya, and that will always be haunting because it was taken just a short time before the evidence shows that she was never seen or heard from again. It was taken by Naziah herself, a selfie. That's the last known picture that we know about of her. It was pointed out to me by one of the detectives on this case and by one of the prosecutors. She is smiling and waving and saying hello. But little did she know that she was really saying goodbye. We will provide to you later a very skeleton timeline of the time right before her death, before and after. Of course, the detail would be provided in court. The evidence shows overwhelmingly in this case that she is in fact deceased. The last time she was seen alive was January the 9th of this year, 2024, almost 9 months ago. Her missing status was reported to the Detroit Public School Police Department by her grandmother on that very day when she never returned home from school. And again, that was January the 9th of 2024. In early February of 2024, the case was turned over to the Detroit Police Department. Frankly, that should have happened right away, but they began investigating immediately. The evidence will further show that through text messages that we know and that we have, Zanaya and this defendant were going to meet after school on January the 9th. We know that she did indeed meet up with the defendant that we're charging in this case. We also know that several people close to Mr. Butts, who we were charging later, saw them together in several different locations, people that he knew well. We have evidence that at 9:30 p.m. on that day, that Mr. Butts checked into a motel and that Zanaya was never seen or heard from again. Not from her family, not from her schoolmates, not from her friends, not from social media where she was extremely active with her friends, not from teachers, no one. We know that she had no medical conditions that would cause a life-threatening medical emergency to her. And he, again, was the last person that saw her alive. She would have turned 14 years old just 10 days ago on September the 16th of 2024. And again, no one has seen or heard from her. You look at that face and you do not see the horrors that she had gone through in her short life. The exploitation, the molestations, the sexual abuse, and the pregnancy that she was concealing. The evidence will show that from whatever text messages to and with Jarvis Butts. And we also know, the evidence will show, that there's no evidence of anyone else being the father of that child, other than the defendant himself, who we charge today. And he knew she was pregnant. We know that he was also searching for ways to abort the baby. We know that sexually explicit photos were requested by him of her and that she complied and sent them to her. All at the hands, we allege, the man we are charging with her death and also her long-term sexual abuse. In our warrant review process that Matt and Tina and others put together, excellent work on that. Video of 111 gigabytes, witnesses and witness statements, body-worn camera, and let me not forget, it was Tina and Matt's memo, but the work of the Detroit Police Department. Anyway, we reviewed 111 gigabytes of video, witnesses and witness statements, body-worn camera footage, surveillance video, police reports, documents, 19 gigabytes, medical records, search warrant returns, phone extractions, which came to 506 gigabytes. Today, we are charging Jarvis Butts with 1 count of first-degree premeditated murder, 1 count of criminal sexual conduct in the second degree, and 1 count of child sexually abusive material. Today, we are also charging Mr. Butts with more counts of criminal sexual conduct on 2 more girls, yes, girls, on 2 other separate cases. The girls in question now are 20 and 11 respectively today, but both were under the age of 13 years old at the time the offenses occurred that we're charging. We are charging that one victim who is now 20 years old, that from April of 2012 to April of 2014, is alleged that defendant Butts sexually assaulted the victim at a residence in Detroit. Further facts and evidence on that matter will be placed on the record at the preliminary examination. In that case, we charge Mr. Butts with criminal sexual conduct, 1 count in the first degree, person under 13, defendant 17 or older. In that case, we are also charging Mr. Butts with 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct in the second degree, person under 13, defendant 17 years or older. In the second criminal sexual conduct case, well, I guess the third that we're charging today, we are alleging that the victim, who is now 13 years old, that from July 2015 through July 2017, we're alleging that he sexually assaulted the victim at a residence in Detroit. And again, further facts and evidence will be developed at the preliminary examination. Defendant Butts have been charged with, in that case, 1 count of criminal sexual conduct in the second degree. child under the age of 13, Mr. Butts over the age of 17. Based on all the evidence that I've laid out now and much more that will be shown later in court, based on all these cases we will present in court, Mr. Butts targeted and befriended women who had to have sexual relationships with their young daughters. He would have relationships with their mothers, but his true desire was to have sex with their young daughters. That's what the evidence will show. He was a classic and expert groomer and pedophile. It's incredibly sad, incredibly unspeakable, and we want to bring justice to her and her family. I have to take this moment to say something to you, and this is not directed at all at Naziah's family, who by all accounts had many in her family that truly loved her. This is directed to everyone else listening to me now. We must be very careful who we let into our hearts and our homes and our lives, especially if you have children. We must be very careful who we have around our children and elders respectively. We must also be very careful who we leave our children with, even if they are in a relationship partners, family, and friends. I'll say that again, even if they are relationship partners, families, or friends. Life can be hard enough at times, but when it comes to our children, we must be deliberative, we must be diligent, and laser focused on their safety. And sometimes we must make decisions about them and their lives that we may not like and that they may not like, but it's for the betterment of them and their safety and their future. When something doesn't feel right, even if it's just that voice in your head, it usually isn't right. And sometimes when we are attentive and we do everything right by our children, things can still happen and still go very wrong despite our best efforts. This can happen to good watchers of children. But we must always ask ourselves at the end of each and every day, was I right by each member of my household in terms of their safety? Did I do right by my children? Now, of course, Mr. Butts is presumed innocent unless and until he's found guilty on each and every crime and count that we have charged today. We have been told this morning that the arraignment will be tomorrow, we think at 10:30 a.m. in the morning, but we don't have confirmation of that yet. But the arraignment, we are told, will happen tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. Chief.
Good morning. This is one of the most difficult cases that I have been a part of, and I'm just so very thankful to the detectives and the investigators in homicide. The tragedies that happened to this little girl touches each and every one of us, and unfortunately, she lost her life at the hands of someone who should have been concerned about her safety. I just want to take a couple moments and thank Madam Prosecutor and her team for the amazing work, the commitment, the hours that they put into this work. I want to thank our major crimes, missing persons, homicide, specifically Sergeant Jones and Lieutenant Amber Roberson. When I tell you the days and hours and the tenacity that they put into this work, it's not often that I'm not surprised by our officers, but when I saw the work and the hours and the time that they put in there, I was absolutely in awe at my weekly briefings and the time that they put into this case. It is not an 8-hour-a-day job. It ends when they have to get a couple hours of sleep. And I will tell you, with all the other things going on, this case was always top of mind. Certainly want to thank DPS for their assistance in transferring over some of the information that we were able to get from them with this case. There were a number of people, our community in particular, even our Board of Police Commissioner, Tamara Liberty Smith, who was out knocking on doors and passing out flyers, all with the desire to bring this little girl home to her family. Quickly, as the investigation unfolded, the officers realized that was going to be very difficult. Without going into great detail, I will tell you, as the prosecutors indicated, hours and hours and many gigabytes of information and phone records and knocking on doors and pulling video went into this investigation. And sadly, we find ourselves where we are now. But if there's any solace in any of this, is that we take a lesson from this. We make strong and good decisions for our children, keep them out of harm's way. We are not pointing out anything that someone did wrong. We just want to make sure people do a lot more things right. And again, Madam Prosecutor, thank you and your team for the work.
The chief and I will take a few questions, if you have any.
I have one. How did Jarvis Butts have access to Messiah?
He knew some of their family members, some of her family members.
Can you talk about the time frame when you mentioned grooming? Are you able to elaborate at all over how long of a period of time he may have quote unquote groomed or knew her? Or
All I can and will say at this point that it started in 2022.
So just for accuracy, this little girl's remains have never been found?
No.
Is there a thought?
Her body has never been found.
Any thought of where she may be?
Well, if we knew that, we would certainly have a case that we weren't trying. We were trying without a body.
We asked this, can you say what triggered charges now?
Again, there's an incredible amount of material. And one of the reasons why lately I've been giving out amounts of material that we've been going through, because I think people sometimes just do not get it or understand about all the work that it takes by the investigators and by the prosecutors to put a case like this together. Whenever you have a case like this, where there has been no body found, it makes it more difficult and much more investigation must be done because we have to be able to prove that the person is deceased.
Are you able to say how long this suspect was on your radar when you really started locking in on him?
No, by law, I can't really comment on that because that would leave me in a place where I can't talk about right now.
Could things have maybe moved forward a little faster if the school police had got with Detroit police right away?
Yes.
Can you talk a little more about?
No, I better not. I have strong opinions there.
You added to that the evidence, however, suggests that Ziyaharris is dead, correct?
We are going to be able to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that she's dead, as we must do by law.
You can't say, but why?
Because no one's seen her, no friends, no family, no teachers, no medical conditions. Even on her birthday, 10 days ago, she contacted no one. This was a child that never missed school, but the school hasn't seen or heard from at all again. This is a young girl who was very active on social media and crickets, nothing, since January the 9th of 2024.
Anything from the defendant?
And we have other things too that will come out in court.
Any cooperation at all or utterances, statements from the defendant?
I can't get into that.
Without being able to speak in detail, I'm sure, do you have any evidence to indicate manner and location of death or where this might have occurred?
No, because we can't do that unless we have a body.
Mr. Butts is currently facing charges in prosecutor right office. Can you talk additional charges before these? Can you talk about those at all?
He is, and we next appear in court on Monday, January 30th.
Have there been any other arrests made in this case?
I don't think so.
We just saw an unfounded rumor that there were family members arrested. Didn't know if you could squash that or confirm that.
It's an unfounded rumor. It's not true.
Thank you.
Do you have an idea of how long Messiah may have been being molested?
Again, the sexual abuse began based on the evidence that we have in 2022. Or at least the grooming began in 2022.
Are you able to say how far along she was on her pregnancy?
We don't know because we don't have a body.
I have a question for Chief White just about missing children just broadly. When these types of cases happen, obviously we get the reports all the time. Can you talk about what you think didn't work in this case? You know, in terms of like maybe the seriousness that was considered when she first went missing, according to PTSD, CD, versus those facts. You guys.
I would much rather have had the case earlier. I don't know if the outcome would have been any different based on some of the things we've learned in the course of the investigation, but we may have had an opportunity to recover even more evidence. But we're pretty confident that the evidence that we have is strong. We know it is, in fact. But you can never have enough evidence. So if there's anything that could have gone a little bit better with regards to the first time that we were brought in, I would have wanted to be brought in much earlier. For that reason.
Just a background on Jarvis Butts. What's his age and is he from Detroit?
He's 41 years old, from Highland Park, I believe.
Yeah.
And Chief, as soon as you guys got word of this, you guys were out immediately, right? I think you were even out searching. You guys set up a command post.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, we took over the case after we were briefed. We took charge of the case, and our teams got engaged in it immediately and hit the ground running, and didn't look back.
Can you talk about, Chief White or maybe Sergeant Jones, the Maziah's case in connection to the other missing young people, girls, children, like what your workload looks like, how you balance those cases, and are able to, the numbers of youth that are missing right now?
Yeah, well, we make that public. We put it on our social media pages. There's a number of misinformation, misconceptions about missings. Oftentimes what we have is kids that run away for a day or two. They have a way of investigating these cases. They know the ones that routine runaways, if you will. They still look, they still go out, but there's ways to do it, going to the school, social media with kids. It's a big benefit to us for our investigations. And they also know when they become serious missings. All missings are serious, but internally there's a title that it has been elevated to a serious missing, and that involves a lot more work and connection with the family. Each time we get a call, we go out to the home, regardless of whether or not it's a person who has run away or a routine runaway or serious missing. We check the home. We have found kids in the home hiding. So it's really complex, and we'll take its own news conference to explain it. I will tell you this, they do a very good job. We've got thousands of kids this year that have been returned home, many of which were runaways. So we don't have a condition where kids are being picked up on the street and kidnapped. We did have an incident a couple of years ago where that happened, and the prosecutor charged that person. In fact, they were just recently convicted. So it's a lot that goes into it. We'd be more than happy to sit down and explain our process with you if you want to do something on an aside.
Chief, assuming then, inferring that investigators knew early on this was not a runaway case, or just if you could share some details of the fact that I'm assuming you knew pretty quickly this was not what she did as far as running, and there was some foul play involved. And if you can address the complexities that the prosecutor alluded to of not having a body and how you build a case around that.
Well, the prosecutor builds cases. We bring evidence to the prosecutor. We bring our investigation, and she makes the charging decision. So I don't want to get into that lane because it's not mine. I'll tell you, as I said earlier, the prosecutor has alluded to a lot, and there's a lot in the press release as to what goes into it. These folks looking at hours and hours of video evidence, and as the prosecutor indicated earlier, I don't think people recognize in this new age of modern technology what that has done to investigative process. The days of old school investigations, some of that stuff still is valid and important. You got to get out on the street, knock on doors, and talk to people. But what the digital world has brought us is new opportunities to find additional information and the cadence in which people communicate, right? Every one of us have these things in our pocket called cell phones that we use for everything. And if people go dark, and they've never been dark, and particularly kids, they show their food, they show their school, they take selfies, and when that stops, that elevates your concern as to why that has stopped. So it's a very complex process. These are the experts. I'm just the chief. But, again, we can sit down and talk to you about it in great detail, but a lot goes into it. And when you're talking about 111 gigabytes of information and text messages and dumping phones and literally going through methodically each one of the pages and the text messages and the communication as to when they stopped and the last word said that should have prompted a response. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I can't get into that. All those things elevate your curiosity and brings you into other areas. So it takes a lot more time, but when you get it all right and you pull all the things together, you become as confident as we are now with this case. And we're very, very, very happy that this predator, this child predator, will not be able to hurt any more children and frankly, any more women, because we know that the women were a pathway to the children. That's that period. I'm going to stop there before I get in trouble with the prosecutor.
506 gigabytes just from the cell phones.
Are there any other people that are close to her family that may be charged?
This investigation is over, and we have charged the one single person that's responsible for not only her death, the evidence showed, but also for the sexual assaults that we have charged today.
And what are his priors? Do we have those?
Oh, I definitely can't go there. I'll lose my law license.
Chief, some of Naziah's relatives said they previously had talked to CPS about allegations of sexual abuse from Naziah and other kids. Did that ever make it to your office? Is that something that police have investigated before?
Yeah, let me just say this, that if anyone that is watching this press conference right now, or reads any of the coverage that I'm sure that you will give this, has any reason to believe that they were a victim of his or that they know something else, we certainly welcome them to contact the Detroit Police Department.
So you can't say if there were any previous reports on that?
No.
Has Mr. Butts made any admissions at all?
We can't talk about that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
One day later, Jarvis Butts stood mute at his arraignment, where he waived the formal reading of his charges because, in my opinion, he's a coward. I'll read them. The charges against Butts in Naziah's case is 1 count first-degree premeditated murder, 1 count criminal sexual conduct second degree, 1 count child sex abuse material. There are additional charges for crimes committed against his own biological child, which is 1 count of criminal sexual conduct first degree, child under 13, and then 3 counts of criminal sexual conduct second degree. And then lastly, we have charges for crimes committed against one of Jarvis Butts' ex-girlfriend's daughter. For that, he is being charged with 1 count of criminal sexual conduct, second degree, child under 13. Further evidence shows that Jarvis Butts would have relationships with women with children so he could gain access, groom, and eventually abuse. So now let's watch this coward's arraignment.
Jarvis Butts.
Okay, this is calling case number, Mr. Butts has 3 cases. Case number 240-596-1901, Houston, Michigan versus Jarvis Butts. Case number 240-596-1801, Houston, Michigan versus Jarvis Butts. And case number 240-596-1701, Houston, Michigan versus Jarvis Butts. Appearances from the people.
Yes. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Tina Ripley on behalf of the people, P83688.
And good afternoon, Your Honor. Matthew Mathis on behalf of the people, P82796.
Good afternoon. Okay, it's quick.
Good afternoon, Your Honor. Neighborhood Defender Service by Cheryl Quebec, P83973 on behalf of Jarvis Butts. I believe co-counsel is present. Ken Riggins.
Yes, he is.
And good afternoon, Your Honor. Good afternoon to your staff. Neighborhood Defender Services by Ken Riggins, P82125 on behalf of Mr. Jarvis Butts, who stands with me to my right.
Okay, Ms. Quickly, Mr. Riggins, do you waive from reading stand here?
We do, Your Honor.
Okay, Court of the Ninth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Court of the Ninth District on behalf of the client with respect to all 3 cases. My recommendation from the people.
Yes, Judge. People are requesting a remand.
On all 3?
Yes, Judge.
Can you give us just a brief summary for each case?
Yes, Judge.
I mean, very, relatively brief, yes.
Sure, Judge. Starting with the case ending in 619, that is a criminal sexual conduct in the first degree with added charges of criminal sexual conduct in the second degree. That is for Mr. Butts' biological daughter, and she was around 8 or 9 when the touchings first started happening, and 10 when she was penetrated. Mr. Butts is a habitual offender, 4th offense notice, mandatory 25 years, and he also has a prior conviction for criminal sexual conduct in the 3rd degree with a person 13 through 15.
Can you background on those 2 cases, please?
Yes, and as it relates to case ending in 618, that is 1 count of criminal sexual conduct in the 2nd degree. He does have the 2nd offense notice on that, along with a habitual 4th offense mandatory 25. That case is for the sexual assault of a 4-year-old minor. She was 4 years old at the time, and she was the daughter of one of Mr. Butts' girlfriends at the time, and I believe her to have contracted chlamydia. And as it relates to the case ending in 617, that case involves the missing 13-year-old Naziah Harris. Naziah went missing on January 9th in 2024 after last being seen alive with Jarvis Butts. Mr. Butts is a serial child rapist and murderer. The evidence will show that Jarvis Butts has been sexually assaulting Neziah Harris since at least the fall of 2022, and that Neziah Harris was pregnant with Jarvis Butts' child on January 9th of 2024, and that Mr. Butts was aware of this pregnancy. Jarvis Butts was supposed to turn himself in on January 9th of 2024 to serve a year-long sentence for CCW. This date ultimately got moved to February 7th of 2024, allowing him the opportunity and time to take care of his Neziah Harris problem. And that's exactly what Mr. Butts did. While Neziah Harris's body has still not been found, the evidence recovered points to only one devastating outcome. Although Jarvis Butts is currently serving a sentence for CCW, that's no excuse for his bond in this case to be anything but a remand. Jarvis Butts has been a convicted child rapist since 2025, as I mentioned, or 2005, I'm sorry. And as I mentioned prior, he is a habitual fourth offender notice with a mandatory 25 years. And if convicted of any of these charges in these cases, that is a mandatory 25. He is an absolute danger to the community and all children. Since getting out of prison, Jarvis Butts has continued to sexually assault children, resulting in now 3 active criminal sexual conduct cases against minors, with no doubt many more out there. The people acknowledge that these charges are allegations at this point, but we're confident in these charges moving forward that the evidence will show that Jarvis Butts not only sexually assaulted and impregnated Neziah Harris, but that he ultimately killed her in order to cover up the ongoing assaults and pregnancy.
Thank you, Ms. Whitman. From Ms. Quick or Mr. Ravens, any response to the pressure remand?
Well, I will say, with all conjecture aside, the one thing she said that is true is Mr. Butts is currently under sentence. As such, he is not eligible to be released, so we are not going to object to the bond at this time.
Okay. Ms. Quick, is there anything you want to add?
Yes, for Mr. Ravens.
Okay. All right. Court never heard an argument as to bond. Remand is provided under MCR 6.106, provided the people show a great presumption of guilt. I think it's more than met their burden. We'll remand Mr. Butts in all 3 cases in custody of Wayne County Jail while the case is pending. Mr. Butts' next court date will be probable cause October 4th, preliminary examination October 10th, 1:45 p.m., at least tentatively scheduled now for the Judge King. Anything else from the record from either any attorneys?
No, for the people, Judge, thank you.
Nothing from the bench, yeah.
No, Your Honor.
Quick. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Butts, you step aside.
I want to close this video with a reminder that this poor child is still missing. She's still out there somewhere. That coward will not admit what he did to her or where she is. So if anyone has any information on the whereabouts of Neziah Harris, please contact 1-800-SPEAK-UP or visit 1-800-SPEAKUP.org. If you saw something, and not just in this case, but in general, if you see something and it doesn't sit right with you, say something. You could save a child's life. I want to end this video with a quote from the Attorney General who helped prosecute one of the biggest child sex predator cases in the U.S., and that was against Dr. Earl Bradley, who was a pediatrician who had over 1,200 victims. But the Attorney General of that case once said, "As adults, we have a legal and moral obligation to stand up and speak out for children who are being abused, as they cannot speak for themselves." And I'm going to leave it on that note. Until next time, stay sassy.